We've done Camp Winoka quite a few times before, but this time it had to be different. This time it had to be better. We wanted to tell the story of Camp Winoka in a way that it's never been told before.
My character's name's Nick. He's one of the camp counselors for Camp Winoka. He's a very cocky guy, very self-absorbed, thinks that he's the coolest guy on earth. Ladies' man, just that typical, type of guy.
My character, Maggie, she's the leader of the counselors. She's very caring about all of the campers. She wants everything to run as smoothly as possible, and she wants the campers to have a great time.
My character was named Marcus Peabody, and as you can tell maybe by his name, he is sort of a nerd, but some people can take the nerd as maybe like the alien type who really talks like this, but I try to take it to the route where he was kind of likable nerd and oh, he's a cute nerd, and maybe I am a nerd, but I'm a likable nerd.
My character, Karen, she's one of the counselors at Camp Winoka, and she's really, really sweet and caring, and she's so understanding of everyone, but she's also a little bit flirty, so she was really fun to play.
Well, my character's name is Sue, and she's a tough girl. She's a prankster. I mean, if you get on her bad side, she's gonna get you. She's gonna get you back.
My character's name is Kim, and she is a healthy food freak, and she wants to become a famous supermodel someday. And I think at that age, you kind of all want to do that, but I guess she just wants to take the next step in that and actually do it.
My character, Norman, he's the nerd of the group, and he hangs out with all these outgoing other guys. He really likes to have a good time, but he's kind of shy at the same time.
The what? That means I'll have to take my allergy pills.
My character is Helga, and she's the Russian exchange student. And I guess I would have to say that she's really burly, because she grew up in Russia where it's cold, and she had to train wild bears for a Russian circus every summer. That just sounds like loads of fun.
My character is Wilhelmina, and she's a British supermodel, and she's so fun to play because she's so prim and proper, and she doesn't really like to be at camp.
My character is Liz, and she's a germaphobic, and she's paranoid about everything, and she's scared to be around a lot of things, and she wears a helmet, gloves, and mask, and she's just so fun to play.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Emma Jo. Pretty fancy place you got here.
My character is Emma Jo, and she's this country hick. She's a national champion at throwing cow patties, which is weird. But I enjoyed playing her.
My character is Buster Williams. Well, actually his real name's Charles, but name's too boring. So he goes by Buster. He's just this adventurous kind of, let's have fun kind of guy.
My character is Andrea, and she's a prankster first off, but she's very independent, and she's spunky, and she's just so much fun to play just because she's kind of got that attitude towards everyone, but she's so lovable anyway.
My character's name was Amy, and she was a really happy girl. She was over the top happy, and she always had a lot of fun, and she was really positive about everything.
Okay, my character's name is Billy Joe, and he is basically just like a redneck, really. He's from Arkansas, and he's really not used to everything that's going on around him because he's
never left his hometown. So he's really having to learn about, all this different stuff outside of his town. And so it's really basically like a culture shock for him.
Not only were we up against rain in the forecast every single day, but we were also up against the Texas heat.
Makeup had to be constantly on set to dab or powder the cast faces due to the fact that they were always sweating.
Not only do we have to worry about keeping our cast cool and hydrated, but then our cameras started to overheat.
So we made sure that we had umbrellas over the cameras to protect them from the heat.
When you have a jib of that size on set, you're gonna need a lot of people to deal with it. I mean, with the counterweight, the length of the arm, the fact that it gets really hot really fast in the sun, you're gonna need a good group of people to help maintain it, especially when you're pressed for time.
In previous years, we've always had to stop filming due to planes and cars and the occasional train. But this year, they decided to put a DART light rail station right by the park. And that meant that we literally had 5-minute windows of clean sound in between trains. And that was just something we'd never had to deal with before.
While it was still shot in less than 5 days, it was by far the longest we've spent shooting on location.
As a boom operator, I knew the camera's frames for most shots because I'd been in this camp before. But with the introduction of the jib, it became a real challenge for me to stay out of shots.
When it came to shooting our night scenes, we wanted to get really elaborate with the set. So we taped up some of our excess foliage behind the tents and lit it so that there would be silhouettes of leaves on the walls.
The director wanted to introduce color to the story due to the limited outdoor palettes of green. So he went to Target to buy these cheap set of umbrellas that, while they looked great, they were a challenge to keep open in the wind.
Time was running out.
We were going through water so fast.
We couldn't stop filming just because, 1 or 2 cast members need a break, because the heat was just gonna get worse.
And this was the games. This was when we needed to have the most energy.
This year, they decided to put a DART light rail station right by the park. And that meant that we literally had 5-minute windows of clean sound in between trains.
During the filming of the tug of war, I noticed Ashley dropped the rope and walked off, and she told me that her vision was getting blurry and that she wasn't feeling good. And that's when I realized that the heat was getting to her and we needed to get her some water and get her into the shade right away.
Peyton all of a sudden just walks out of the camera. She's like, all right, I need to sit down. So I give her some water and she was just really, really pale.
And that means 2 cast members are down. So that means that filming a scene that all the cast members are supposed to be in is gonna be really challenging.
I mean, we knew what we were up against. We knew about the heat, but we'd never had cast members not be able to make it through a scene before. We scheduled more breaks and took extra care to keep the cast cooled down, but we knew that the longer we stayed out there, the more the heat affected everyone else.
And that was day 1.
The most challenging scene to film was the tug of war. Yeah. And I think we all know why.
My most challenging scene to film was the 3-legged race because it took a while to do. We had to keep on doing different takes. But me and Buster, we fell I don't know how many times. And sometimes it was good, and sometimes we couldn't even get up because we were all twisted up and stuff. But it was still just tons of fun.
The arm wrestling scene, because we were originally going to do 1 take, and so we kept going over and over and over again. So, and plus it was in the heat, so that was a pretty hard scene.
Definitely the tug of war, because you had to keep going and going and going at it, even though you didn't really pull that hard, but you were outside and you had to keep cheering, and that does get tiring after a while.
I guess it was the scorpion when I was like trying to squish it with the shoe because it's plastic, so you don't really know when it's dead or not. So you can't like lift up the shoe and look. So I just kind of leave the shoe there just in case.
The most challenging scene for me would probably have to be the three-legged race because I was tied to one of my best friends. Her name is Lexi, and we had to run together up and down this basically just big field of grass over and over and over again under the really hot sun, and that was just physically draining for me.
The most challenging scene was probably the ring toss because I was kind of the main person in it because I was the end. I had to make the point to win. And there's a bunch of different shots we had to do, and it took a long time, but I think it's going to be worth it in the end.
I don't want to put any pressure on you, but if you miss, we lose.
The arm wrestling for me, because at first when we were first practicing, we were told that each thing was going to be like 7 seconds long as far as the arm wrestling itself, and it was going to switch off real quick. But then when we go out there, Brad says it's gonna be a minute long each arm wrestling, and my guys like real into it because I want them to win really bad. So the moment where we go, it's me go, and then after like 30 seconds, go, and then they leave, and there was no like cut in between the arm wrestling, so it was all one. So it was about like a good 5 minutes straight of just go, and then cut, and then. And then, all right, from one, and then we have to, do it over again. So that was probably had to be my toughest thing.
The biggest thing I learned this week was to take advantage of your rest time because by the end of the week, you're going to be so tired and you still have to film a few scenes and you don't want to have, not be your character anymore. And you want it to still look good on the big screen.
Biggest thing I learned was to keep track of things because one day I put my glasses in the box and the next day somehow they just disappeared, and I swear they were in the box, but somehow they ended up in the seats and I got in a little bit of trouble because I couldn't keep track of my props.
To keep your character in every scene at 110% because you don't want to go 80% in one scene and then 110% in the other and see that on the screen. It just because it's gonna look weird.
Biggest thing I've gained this week is confidence. Like I said, this is my first time ever doing anything like this, so I had no idea what it would be like. I had no idea if I would even be able to do it. After doing this, after getting a feel for this type of thing, it's given me a lot of confidence.
The biggest thing I gained this week was a lot of friends because everyone in the cast, or most people in the cast, weren't in my class. And so I didn't really talk to them very much. I didn't really know them very well. And I think after this week, I kind of, got to know them, got to hang out with them, and they got to know me, so, it's good for them.
So the biggest thing I learned this week was how to do a country accent. I had to watch the Beverly Hillbillies because I had no idea how to execute this. So I watched it 50 times. And that's how I learned it.
Working and communicating with your cast is really helpful because if you're just kind of all on your own and you don't ask for help, then your character is it's not gonna really come to life like you would like it to.
I think that the biggest thing that I learned this week is that patience is a virtue. Because if you don't have patience, then you really can't work in this industry. Because a lot of it is just waiting around for your scene. And then when you have your scene, you gotta wait for the lighting to be right, and there's just all these particulars that go into it.
My favorite scene to film was the lunch scene because I got to stuff bread in my face. It was good bread.
The Oreo cookie scene because it's really, really cute, and when we were filming it, me and Cooper were both very tired, very delirious, but we pulled together and I think it went pretty well.
My favorite scene to film was the check-in scene because that's the time when you really introduce your character and you get to have a lot of fun with it.
My favorite scene to film was stealing the blue team's snail from their bag during the scavenger hunt, just because I got to like sneak around and I got to be very sly and just kind of almost spy-like, and it was just so much fun.
The bullwhip scene with me and Norman, because believe it or not, I set a record. I was the first one to accidentally wrap the whip around Norman's neck, for real, and then to choke him, for real.
My favorite scene in the film was the Road to a Song because it shows my down-to-earth side and non-germophobic, and it was just so fun to film.
My favorite scene would definitely be when I'm trying to flirt with Nick, because I just end up being such a creeper, and it's great.
The Oreo scene with Jake, where he takes away my Oreos and I have to find him in the woods. He's just like this little kid. He's so cute. So I'm like, okay, you know what? So you can stay and have some Oreos. So we just kind of had like a little feast where he asked for milk, and I'm like, you know what? I have milk right here. So I get my milk out. We're cheers, buddy. And I think that was definitely my favorite scene, just chowing down on Oreos and milk with this little guy.
The biggest challenge this week was trying to keep your energy up throughout the day because it's really hot. You have to wake up really early, so you just have to really just use your energy while you're filming your scenes.
My biggest challenge of the week was waking up early because I'm not a morning person at all, and I take a really, really long time to get ready in the morning, so mornings were not fun for me.
The biggest challenge of this week was getting the bandana on my head, because that thing would not fold right, and it would not tie right, and it would fall off, and it would get loose, especially on the three-legged race scene, because I was just falling all over the place. So I just had a battle with that thing, and it was a tie. The biggest challenge of this week for me was definitely my character and getting into my character and figuring out who he is. And I think the reason why it was so difficult was I have multiple scenes where, yes, I am a nerd, but at the same time, a girl has to like this nerd. So I think that was the biggest challenge for me, just figuring out how to make him a likable character.
Today's Tuesday, and we just got to the park. We're practicing our scenes first until the park opens, and then we're gonna go film them.
Hi, I'm Liz.
The biggest challenge this whole week has definitely been to stay positive because it is pretty hot out there when we're outside. It was definitely like keeping everything very professional, because you could be working on a real set in a few years and you want it to be as professional as possible. It's training for you.
The most difficult thing was probably the tug of war, because I was like pulling as much as I could, and like my character is supposed to be a tough girl, but in reality, it's not really muscle, you know?
It's probably just the physical toll of the week. Having to wake up early, going outside, where if I'm personally